You may have noticed it is the end of the month, and at Tech Yes City, that means a used PC parts hunt, where last time we came to Tokyo, we scored some really good deals. And I'm kind of one of those persons who is like, okay, one good turn deserves another, right? If you have a really good pizza, you usually go for seconds, and that's exactly what we're going to do here today. But also, last time we came here, there was the GTX 1080s. They were really high on the value charts, GTX 1070s, as well as RTX 3070s. So I'm going to see this month if things have changed from that previous meta. What was the best price performance to this month? Hopefully there's something new that pops up and is really good value. But regardless, let's go check out what deals are on display right after today's video sponsor.
If you want to get rid of this annoying activate Windows message, then today's video sponsor SCD Keys has you covered for as little as $15 US. After you enter that coupon code BFTYC, you can cop yourself a legit single end user license today. Also works for Windows 11 Pro too. Links in description below.
So coming out of SCUMO, the first store that we went to, this place is just always like the go-to place when you first come to Tokyo or even Japan. If you're looking for some of the go-to deals on used parts, these guys have always got something, especially if you're looking for value. Now, what I noticed inside this month was my favorite picks, like the 1080s and the 1070s and the 3070s. There was actually not many on the shelves, and the ones that were much higher of a price than what I'm used to paying. But what there was on the shelf was a GTX 1080 Ti. Now, we got, of course, if you're on the tourist passport, you can get the 10% off. You don't pay the tax. And that's what we did. And we got this for around 120-ish USD, I think, under that. Now, I recently did a video on the Titan XP, and I saw the eBay prices for that. That was going for around 150 to 200 USD, and that was on a pretty good deal. So getting one of these 1080 Ti for 120 USD is always a good thing. But then going through the CPUs, I am noticing a trend, but I'll check out some more stores and I'll talk about that later. But there was, of course, just one deal that I had to pick up, and that's the Ryzen 7 1700. Now, you're thinking, Brian, that thing is a bit of a slug nowadays. It's a bit old, but it's the marketing there. We've got the Ryzen 7 marketing with the 8 cores, 16 threads, and we've got that included cooler. This one came with the Wraith Spire LED, and for that price, around 30 USD, you just cannot go wrong for a CPU with these kinds of names on the spec sheet. And that's what a lot of it's going into, especially with the amount of CPUs I'm seeing on the shelves with 13th and 14th gen. I think a lot of people are going. The whole trend is people are switching to Ryzen CPUs, and so when they're switching to Ryzen CPUs, you just accommodate the market, and of course, when you're flipping, you're making the bucks. But also, the last deal that we got here, GTX 960, and you're probably thinking at this stage, Brian, you have lost it, bro. 962 gigabytes in 2024. But then I'm thinking, I haven't lost it, guys. Let's check the price tag on this. Let's get a bit of a reality check here. Under 25 USD each. And that can go in potatoes that are just playing Roblox. I mean, unless Roblox has become unpopular and things like basic Minecraft, which I don't think they have, and for instance, people who just want to play like maybe Pokemon TCG Online, these graphics cards are the perfect cards for these kinds of games. And of course, when you're coupling them in with budget parts, it's just servicing the market, just preparing, getting ready. But speaking of getting ready, let's go tour around all the other bargain stores here and see what used parts are on display. So we just came out of the first Jampara, and there's actually 4 of them in Akihabara that have PC parts. And basically what Junk Paradise is a store that just stocks a heap of different good used parts across a variety of things like TVs, monitors, keyboards, cameras, phones, but they've also got, of course, PC parts. And now they've actually added in another shelf at this particular junk paradise. It's got now more of the higher-end graphics cards in there, but one thing I noticed was RTX 3070s are going up in price here. And it's kind of funny because recently I think the yen just appreciated a bit against the US dollar and the Australian dollar, which kind of makes me a little bit sad because I'm used to getting those RTX 3070s at bargain prices. Though don't let that distract you from the fact that there are still awesome bargains to be had, and we got two right here in the backpack. And the first being a motherboard, which is an AM4 B350, and we got this for around 35 USD, I think, off the top of my head. Now, that's some of the cheapest entry motherboards you can get to AM4, and coupled in with that Ryzen 7 1700, that just makes for a bargain budget gaming system. And then we got the GTX 1070. Always picking these up for 70 USD is an absolute treat. And I'm getting these parts so cheap here that I'm standing in front of the police station, and I wouldn't be surprised if they came up to me and started accusing me of stealing because of how good are the deals I'm getting here today. So we just stopped through Bust Off, and it's kind of like every time I just come through, I'm like, okay, I'm right here. I might as well just check it out and just hold my hands together and pray that prices might be reasonable. But then I walk in, and the first item I see is a GTX 1060 for like 160-ish USD. And I'm thinking to myself, who in their right mind can keep a straight face and price up a GTX 1060 for 160 USD in 2024? Sometimes I just don't know what these guys are thinking when they price up PC parts. So we've got some really good news stepping out of the second junk paradise, and that is the cheapest RTX 3080 I have found in Japan. And it's actually by quite a bit of a margin, like at least around 60 USD, cheaper than any 3080 I've picked up here before. Now, I checked out on the description, it said there was something like it wasn't perfect condition, but upon inspecting the card, it was really good. It looked like it was in really good condition for its age, and the fans, they all spun up fine, at least when I did the human test. So this card looks like it's good to go. Plus, it's got all this RGB side plate bling and stuff included. Now, in terms of other deals at this place, there was really just mediocre deals in terms of motherboards, other GPUs. Everything was just missing that strike price here. But there was a GTX 1066 gigabyte, but I decided to skip on it because they just flat out said it came with no warranty, and they didn't label it as junk. So it's kind of like, I'm thinking to myself, nah, I'm going to stay away from that deal if possible, because I just don't want anything to do with it. But also on the way here, we did stop by a few places, not just that bust off. After the bust off with the ridiculous prices, we went to a place that had some good deals from time to time on new parts. And this time around, they didn't really have any good deals on new parts. But one thing I did notice is the RTX 3050 6GB are now kind of just getting mass ushered onto the shelves. So they're replacing those 8GB models like indefinitely now, which is kind of sad because they're just not as good as the 3050 8GB, and they're coming in at the same price. So that's kind of like I'm seeing shrinkflation just in real time here on the shelves in Japan taking place. But also, another store that we checked out was DOS Para in Tokyo here, and there wasn't really anything that was eye-catching here. I noticed the 3070s there as well. They've gone up in price, but there were some H610 motherboards that were going for really cheap, but we'll talk about that later on in the video with the 13th, 14th gen stuff a little bit with the used market. So I think it's an important talking point because I am noticing some trends that are starting to sort of emerge here while we're doing this parts hunt. But of course, guys, we are covering the bus just like we're covering the wins right here. But in terms of wins, let's go check out the rest of these places and see what's crack-a-lackin'. So we've now just checked out another junk paradise, which ended up being a bust, but usually they don't have much on display. But we've also checked out another 2 places where we've also got one deal, which ironically, we were just talking about the RTX 3050 6GB being in stock and coming into play. But then we walked into this one place called Arc, and I just sometimes go in here to check out what they've got on display. Really good if you're looking for keyboards and mice, especially if you're into some of those like Japanese mice pads like Artisan, for instance. They've got all the different ones on display and stuff like that. But what they had here was a bulk deal on RTX 3050 8GB, and they're actually a really good price. So it was only 1 per customer, so I decided to snag up my 1 per customer today, and it's just in bulk packaging. So we got that deal, awesome. But then there was the soft map, and we moved on to soft map, and here is where they had like a heap of different used parts, but the deals were just really not that good. They're almost coming to the stage where I want to get a deal from Softmap, but it's just a little bit more expensive than the other places. Now, don't get me wrong. If you were just looking for a GPU, a good used deal, most of the stuff you're seeing on the shelves here today is actually pretty good prices. In fact, even the first place we went to, there was a 2080 Ti for like $200-ish, $30-ish dollars. And at that price, it's pretty good, but it's just like not my strike price compared to an RTX 3070 for similar money. So you got these good deals on the shelves, but of course, with the used parts hunts, we're always looking for just the cream of the crop, the stellar deals, even though it's like ridiculously hot here right now. It's like, I think it's like peaking at 39 degrees here today. So we're actually going to go check out 2 more used stores, and then we're going to call it a day because I got to carry all this stuff with me and I am just sweating balls right now. So let's try and get back to some aircon as soon as we can. So we just ended up checking out the final 2 places, and we'll get onto the juicy one first, which was the last place we went to, Pasakon Kubo. Usually I check this place and their used deals are just not cracking at all, but this time around they had like this summer sale with like 10 to 20% off and already like pretty good prices on some of the stuff. So I ended up picking up practically one of the only 11th and 10th gen motherboards I've seen in Tokyo here today. And I not only did that, but I also got it for a really good price. They had 20% off this motherboard, so it made it around 30 something USD. But then they also had a B450 motherboard, and that was going for around a similar price too, 20% off. And then I was like, yep, I'll take both those motherboards. But they did say something about the M.2 screw on the Intel board being wobbly or something, and then the AMD motherboard it posts, but that's all they've checked. So they're giving the warranty there, and I'll have to check these out and make sure that they work flawlessly, both the boards. And then the last deal was the GTX 1066 gigabyte, and nothing great here, but a good price. So coming in around that 50 USD mark off the top of my head for a 1066 gigabyte, still a pretty good deal. Got the warranty, so we're all good to go. But the other junk paradise before that, it had pretty good deals, but it was nothing that we've seen like that was stand outish, except for having another RTX 3080 on the shelves. There was a really good price, the same price as the other price that we got the other one at the other store for. So someone must have traded in a heap of these RTX 3080 Galax cards, but we got to take them back to the studio and just run them through a heap of different benchmarks, because before I commit to buying any more, I want to make sure the quality's good on, say, the memory. They haven't been mined on too heavy. I can move the slider a little bit more with a healthy margin. The GPU's not crashing out or anything like that, because even though I got a really good deal on the RTX 3080, I want to make sure it's good before I come back and buy a few more, because if I'm outlaying a heap of money and then they're sort of just passing the mark and I can't take them back, then I'm kind of stuck in a little bit of an icky situation. And I like to be in a great situation, not an icky one. But I mean, speaking of the weather, definitely in an icky situation. It is so hot here. If you do come to Japan during the summer, the yen is so cheap. Everything's really cheap right now, especially if you're coming from US dollars or Australian dollars even. But it's just so hot, so do keep your fluids up and do wear light clothing, because yeah, this is really hot. This is one of the hottest parts hunts I've done, not just in terms of deals, but also literal heat as well. But anyway, let's get back to the studio and start testing some of these parts out before I melt. So we've now just finished testing through all our GPUs. I'll get onto the motherboards and CPUs tomorrow, but I was a little bit worried at first because I tested the RTX 3080 and that was absolutely fine. Like the core slider and the memory slider went a little bit above. Does need new thermal paste, but then I got onto the GTX 1080 Ti and I was starting to see these symptoms come up and I was like, oh no, this is possibly a faulty GPU. But then I realized, okay, it's sort of, it hasn't crashed, the computer hasn't reset, and it's sort of not changing its behavior at all if I undervolt or underclock or anything like that, the memory, the core clocks or anything. And then I tried a different display port and it worked absolutely fine. So there's one faulty display port on this GTX 1080 Ti, but for the price that we paid for it, I'm just gonna let that slide. I mean, when I sell gaming PCs, the most like anyone's ever needed in terms of monitors was 3 monitors. So I'll just plug that up, and when I put in a gaming PC, I'll be like, hey, this port just doesn't work, give you a little discount. And so that's usually how it goes in the field of flipping PCs. But in terms of this month's deals, I don't know which is my favorite deal of this month. Looking through all these deals, I just think we got absolute chock-a-block deals here, where I gotta say, I got them on the table right here. The Ryzen 7 1700, like a little sort of undervalued, underappreciated deal. Picking it up for so cheap, I think it's gonna be a great little pickup in a gaming PC. And then also, we've got the RTX 3080, seeing them come down this cheap. I did see another one on the shelves, and if I'm in Tokyo and they're still on the shelves at these prices now, I've got the green light to go buy a few more of them, but I'm pretty sure they'll start getting snapped up at these prices. It's sort of like the meta will shift away from the RTX 3070 and now go to the 3080, and that's usually how the markets shift in terms of just whatever good GPU is cheap at the time. And so a couple of months ago, a month ago, 3070s were really cheap. Now they're sort of, at least in Japan here, starting to go up in price. I'm sort of changing my tune a little bit. Also the 1070s, they're still pretty good prices. And the 1080s, I didn't really see a whole lot of action on them. But of course, guys, I think at this point in time, in the last few months, I've been saying it's buy season on the used market. Things are just so cheap right now. But we're going to talk about the sort of added in effect here of what is going on with Intel at the moment. I've seen some of these H610s, and even I saw like a H670 motherboard. These were just so cheap. I think I saw one for like 25 bucks, and I was like,
these motherboards are just getting that cheap right now. It makes me wonder, okay, maybe I gotta do a bit more research and see what's going on, because I wouldn't mind buying these motherboards and then just buying up a few i5 12400Fs. I still think they should sell fine, but the thing for me is I won't know until I get back to Australia and test the market. How bad is this Intel thing going to affect, you know, secondhand PC flippers, and what's the implications, especially when we go later into the year, into Christmas season? So that's one thing I'm going to test out, and I'll report back to you guys as always in used parts hunts and other videos and stuff like that. But it's sort of something that I'm sort of just stepping away and being a bit cautious about, because one thing I am noticing is that there's a lot more 13th and 14th gen CPUs on the shelves in terms of used CPUs. So that's one thing I'm looking out for. I'm like, okay, well, the more that these accumulate, the more there's going to be a crash in prices on the used market for these Intel CPUs. And I think naturally that will extend then to like 10th and 9th gen and stuff like that. So you're in a great spot at the moment in the used market. Deals are already pretty good, but I just think deals are going to be getting better, especially when we relate that to the financial conditions. And so what we haven't seen in the recent few months is just mass money printing like we saw in the previous years. So kind of that's your catalyst to worry about price increases. But we have seen this gradual, slow sort of shrinkflation, at least in Japan especially. But I'm wondering if that now is more to do with just the yen weakening in pretty much a similar proportion to the actual shrinkflation that we're seeing. Because I got this green tea from the vending machine, right? Because it was so hot I needed to drink. And I noticed it was like 460 milliliters. I just laughed because I'm like, I've never seen a drink at 460 mil. Usually you get like 500, 550 or 600. So it was just really bizarre to see the shrinkflation coming into just regular items. So that was just a funny piece right there. But what we're seeing going forward in this market is just such a good used market at the moment. It's healthy. There's deals in abundance. It's sort of like you can pick and choose, especially in Japan. Australia, I'm guessing, is no different, because I got friends who are DMing me telling me that they're getting pretty good deals too. So hopefully it's like that in the rest of the world. If you're in the UK, Europe, or say the US, etc., then you're getting really good deals right now, because that sort of seems to be the tone. But in terms of going forward and future outlook, I am just still on that fence of, I think there is some sort of massive financial catalyst coming in the next few months. I don't know exactly when it'll be, but all the research I'm doing at the moment points towards this sort of massive crash, sort of GFC 2.0, coming quite soon. I don't know if it'll be this year or maybe early next year, but when that happens, I think after that, the printers will roll up again in mass. They'll spool up again. And I think up until that point, you're going to get really good deals on both, not just the used market, but even the new market too, as we're seeing with some of those CPUs on AliExpress. And that's for the end user who works hard, earns their money, wants to spend it on some good tech. That's a really good sign at the moment, where we're seeing, say, 5700 X3Ds, Ryzen 5 7500Fs and 7800 X3Ds. Prices of these CPUs are actually incredible for what you're getting. And also the 11400F, which is actually a big reason why I got one of the motherboards that I did in today's parts hunt, because I wanted to put that CPU to the test. And of course, I always like to do it in a budget-orientated style. Anyhow, guys, all that aside, we'll put up the tally. I forgot to put up the tally on the screen for you and talk about all the deals that we got this month. And the takeaway here, it was an absolute, as always, going to Tokyo. That's why I've gone to Tokyo since I've been back in Japan these last few months, because it's just been ripper deals after ripper deals. I did go to Chiba in sort of like a side quest, and the deals were just nowhere near as good as Tokyo. So the balance has definitely shifted in terms of all the really good deals being in Tokyo. So if you're coming to Japan very soon, I know a few of you guys have been or are coming, and definitely go check out Akihabara. Some of the stores that I'm showing you in these videos, you're going to be getting really good deals, especially if you got some spare room in your suitcase. And with all that aside, guys, I hope you enjoyed this blistering hot PC parts hunt this month. If you did, be sure to hit that like button. Also, let us know in the comment section below, how is the scene where you are? How are the deals? And also, what are your thoughts and opinions about today's video? Favorite deal of this month? Let us know. Love reading your thoughts and opinions as always. And I'll catch you in another tech video very soon. With all that aside, I'm going to get on out of here. Peace out for now. Bye.